Amazon Prime just launched Rings of Power. And well, let's talk about it. Hey guys, my name is Kay Falcon and welcome back to my channel. So, as I mentioned before, I finally watched The Rings of Power. It launched. I'm currently up to episode 3. In this video, I'll be telling you my initial thoughts and impressions as I was watching each episode, and yeah, because I have a lot of thoughts about it. I'll be breaking up this video into 3 parts just to make it easier for me to edit and put out for you guys, and easier for you guys to watch, because nobody wants to stay around for another hour-long video. I assume so anyway. So yeah, before I get into that though, I just want to take this time to thank all of you who left comments on my last videos, and also any new subscribers that I got from those videos. And if you are now seeing my video for the first time, you are very much welcome here, and I hope that you guys enjoy it. And yeah, if you're not subscribed, please do. It will help my channel to grow. So please subscribe, hit that notification bell that's right beside the subscribe button, and hit that thumbs up so that you can help to support the channel. So without further ado, let me just get right into it. Quick disclaimer, guys. I'm not going through this frame by frame, because that would just take me forever to analyze, and I won't necessarily be focusing too much on the lore version, mostly because there is none. I'll just be focusing on trying to be objective. It's a little bit hard considering that I have more knowledge than regular people would. However, I'm doing my best to try to stay objective about it and just let you guys know my impressions of the video, or of each episode as I saw it. So starting with episode 1. So episode 1 was titled A Shadow of the Past. And it began, of course, with a small Galadriel, of course, getting bullied, and then promptly beating up the bully. There are many reasons why I can say that would not have happened to Lady Galadriel, who was much revered by elves and other races. But yeah, I'm pretty sure you guys have heard a lot more from other people who are way more knowledgeable than I am. So I won't be harping on that part. However, I found that that particular section was quite underwhelming and very, how should I say, atypical. It kind of highlighted a bit of lazy writing to me, because you're saying basically the quickest way in order to give somebody, or to have people empathize with that character, you are having her bullied. So that kind of laid a little bit flat to me, because it was very, very typical, and is not what we would expect from that character either. So what they were trying to do there just laid very flat. And then it had a bit of a scene where she had a bit of a dialogue with her brother Finrod, and honestly, that entire opening monologue, the dialogue was just extremely forgettable to me. In retrospect, I also think that like that entire opening scene right there kind of seemed like the opening for a Disney movie. It was more of a Disney type of effect rather than the Lord of the Rings fantasy epic, and that kind of I guess set the tone for the future episodes for me specifically. There was also in the opening montage areas where I found that the CGI kind of looked obviously fake. For instance, there was a scene where there was a war sequence, and in it one of the great eagles fell burning, and honestly I thought that was a statue. I felt like you know, they had a statue of an eagle that they just threw down there, like, go down there. There's no movement, like it, well, there was movement, but it just looked so fake. It was obviously fake, and that actually caught my attention right away. I don't know how it did because it went by so quickly, but it did. It wasn't very impactful either. I don't know what it is about that war sequence, but probably mostly the dialogue of it too. There was no emotion for me. I was just watching the frames pass by. Everything kind of seemed a little bit disconnected to me. That opening sequence was just like to me. I must say though that the music is very good. Now, as it connects with each frame, or rather each storyline, the way they used it though was a little bit off in some cases. But I found in that opening montage, I especially liked the music that accompanied them climbing the ice wall. Now, as we get to the ice wall now, Ooh, comes to a group of elves with Galadriel, obviously, in the forefront, climbing that wall. And the first thing that became apparent to me was the fact that all the other elves had proper climbing gear. They had, like, you know, ice hammers to stick into the wall. I don't know what they guys call it. I don't do rock climbing, guys. My bad. And Galadriel is the only one that's using a golden elven blade to climb that wall. I have no words. It's like they're trying to send a message that Galadriel is better than everyone else. She's the only one who can handle climbing this giant wall of ice with a sword or with a dagger, because it's a dagger. Well, everybody else has to use the regular hammers or like ice picks. To me, it was like that distinction didn't need to happen. Also, continuing off after they started climbing the wall, there's a part where they were like lined up in a queue, trying very hard to fight against the wind. There's a soldier in the back that fell behind, and of course Galadriel's like, there's yelling for Galadriel to stop, and Galadriel's like, no, we must continue on. Not something that we would expect from our Lady Galadriel, you know, the fair Lady Galadriel. I know that she was pretty proud when she was younger, but doesn't mean that she was unsympathetic in that entire aspect right there. Just she comes off as a bit of a a-hole, period. And the dialogue right there as well was really crappy. There was a part where they were like, she was having a conversation with one of her, I guess, with one of the soldiers, and they're like, you should have been there by now. And then all of a sudden, a second later, you show images of them finding the castle, like 2 seconds later. Like, you telling me that all this time you were there talking to Galadriel, you didn't recognize that you were in the area that you were supposed to be? That was like highly coincidental, and just kind of heightened the Disney feel to me. It just, anything that they were trying to do right there just laid flat. And then when they finally went into the fortress, I found that there was a lot of potential there, but it was overshadowed over talking and just the behavior and the attitudes of the characters that were in play, not just Galadriel but also the soldiers, made it very off-putting. Because first of all, the dialogue is horrible. Did I say that? I'm sorry, let me reiterate that. The dialogue is horrible. They'd be like kind of speaking out what we already see, and so it's not leaving it to us, the viewers, to really absorb that for ourselves. Even in regular speech, when you point out the obvious, it's a little bit annoying. So by them pointing out the obvious, it destroyed the entire experience for me. And that entire snow troll scene, there was a snow troll scene that they had to fight, and it was just super ridiculous. The orcs throwing the men, elven men, left, right, and center. Warriors. These are supposed to be the finest of the finest warriors in the elven community. And the orc, actually it's a snow troll. The snow troll throwing them left and right and center. And then only when Galadriel came in there, she did this little hip run, hip hop. I don't know. She was literally doing like a martial art movie stunt where she jumped and then kind of jumped on the snow troll, jumped on the sword, jumped on the snow troll in a very, very fake way, and dealt with the snow troll just like that. There was no team playing there. It's just, oh, I'm better than you guys. You know what I mean? I'm your commander, but I'm the only one who's good on this team. That's the type of message it sent. And again, furthered the feeling of like me not having any sympathy for the character at all. She kind of, even with the dialogue, how she talks, right off the bat, she comes off as very abrasive, very stubborn. And again, Galadriel, when she was younger, was very proud. But in retrospect, regardless of the fact that she was younger, then she was still pretty old, because elves live for a very long time, and in the second age she was like already thousands of years old. So yeah, there's a scene also where she was where they pointed out the mark of Sauron. This was before the snow troll. She found the mark in ice, etched in ice, and she's like, Sauron left it here. My first question was, how do you know? You know what I mean? How do you know Sauron left it there? What clues gave it that Sauron left it there? Couldn't it have been one of his underlings that left it there? How do you know that Sauron left it there? You know? There were a lot of questions like that I had. I found that was a constant theme throughout the entire episodes that I watched. Overall, that entire castle scene was a little bit flat to me, especially as it showcased that pretty much all the soldiers were basically chicken. They were scared. There was no bravery whatsoever. And the only brave one there apparently is Galadriel, who wants to push forward, defying orders from her direct superior, the High King himself. Basically, it was like a one-woman army. Basically just said to me, I'm not a team player. And yeah, very stubborn, and those are the type of characters that I really dislike the most. So if their aim was to make me dislike her right away, then they succeeded. Also, the scene where all the soldiers, because Galadriel didn't want to back down and actually do what her orders said to do and come back, they literally put all their weapons on the ground. After fighting a snow troll, they put all their weapons on the ground to supposedly leave. Does that make sense? You're literally in enemy territory and you're leaving your weapons. How does that make sense? And then enters the Harfoots. They introduced the Harfoots, which are hobbits, but not to Lord of the Rings of Power apparently. The overall scene was just very Disney-like to me, very Disney-like. It was nice imagery because you're seeing a little bit of the actual landscape, but it came out very Disney-like, kind of Lost Boyish. I was not expecting that for the Lord of the Rings. After the travelers left and then the hobbits all came out of their little hiding places, Sadok, when he first makes his appearance, he's like, come out there sniffing. The way is clear. I mean, what are you, an animal? How can you sniff and know that the way is clear? Harfoots are still people. As far as I'm aware, they don't have any other special ability like heightened senses or anything. They're just small humans with bigger feet. So the whole sniffing thing just didn't make sense to me. And then it goes into Nori and her people. They're foraging for some berries and stuff like that. And one of the little ones found a footprint that Nori was like, she didn't outright say wolf, but to her friend Poppy, she like signaled wolf and tried to get everybody out there because obviously she sensed danger, right? And then entered the scene of a warg slash wolf coming in sniffing. Like they have him in frame, the wolf in frame, while the hobbits or the Harfoots were still inside. And he's sniffing like, I can still see you. At that point, when you expect that, number one, the scent trail would be very high. And if you're still in frame, wouldn't there be some sort of a chase? I don't know. And then you see Elrond for the first time in like a scene where he's sitting in a tree writing down. Kind of gave me very Lost Boy feels. Like, or kind of Shakespearean as well, slash Disney. It's like you're expecting him to do a little monologue about finding his lost love. It's just sitting in the tree or being like, oh, I need somebody to play with. Because you're writing down on a book. And then enters this other elven lady that came to Elrond to let him know that the next meeting he won't be invited as only lords are allowed. Elrond, needless to say, is a lord. Then they had a bit of a dialogue right there. And the thing that really caught me right away was when I didn't catch it actually until the next scene, which I'll talk about, but they referred to Galadriel as your friend. So after they tell him that he's not invited to the next meeting and your friend is here, I'm pretty sure that no one refers to Lady Galadriel as just your friend.
You will show me respect.
And then enters the scene where you see Galadriel in her garb. And then Elrond comes in very almost fangirling. Fanboying. And he's there like, oh, let me know of your travels. Kind of like a kid who wants to explore the world but is being held back by his parents. Straight off the bat, with the dialogue between Galadriel and Elrond, I see that they were trying to make it seem as if Elrond is cautioning her as a friend. But then even Galadriel's response to Elrond was very unfriendly. It was very abrasive, kind of as if she's looking down on him, which I get that she's supposed to be older and technically wiser at that point, but not according to this particular storyline. But it looks as if she's literally looking down on him, and I didn't really like that. It kind of just sent the message that she doesn't have any respect for anybody else except herself, in my opinion. That is the message that I got from that. Yeah, overall that interaction was just very off-putting to me. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. And then cuts to the scene where we see in the trailer with the crowning ceremony, where apparently they're given the gift of going into Valinor, which different from the lore, but again, I'm not going to go into it. And in it, you see that Elrond is mouthing the words that Gil-galad is saying in his speech. And I'm like, really? Gil-galad can't even write his own speech? Really? And then when he's crowning Galadriel, there's like a little stare off between the two of them. And that was very, very uncomfortable. Like, how are you staring down your High King? I get you're older, but you're also supposed to be a commander in this particular storyline. So how are you defying your superior like this? This is literally your boss. You know what I mean? Have some respect. Why are you staring him down? Like, are you supposed to be the High Queen? Are you trying to usurp his throne? Why are you staring him down? I don't understand. That was like a very disrespectful in my opinion. And then you meet Arondir, and where he walks into this pub, and there was like a confrontation where this very typical angry male is throwing insults, apparently because the elves are supposed to be overseeing the Southlanders who were at one point allied with Morgoth, and so they're supposed to make sure that, yeah, that's not happening again. And so there are a lot of hostile people who remember the past and are apparently awaiting for their king to get back. And there's like a little altercation, not really an altercation, of like a verbal altercation between Arondir and that person. He's like hurling slurs like and insults like pointy boots. And I'm like, you see an elf. I mean, logically speaking, the insult that you say is pointy boots. Like, you don't notice anything that's pointier on him? Really? Anyway. And then after that, you go to the part where they have the warden, where you have other elves. Like, first you have an interaction between Arondir and his friend. Dialogue sucks. Then you go to the warden. The dialogue sucks there as well. I think they try an attempt at humor. Fell flat to me. And honestly, everything was just happening way too quickly. It was hard to really process and what was happening right as it was happening, and also very hard to really sympathize with any of these characters. So, oh yeah, I forgot to mention there was an interaction with Bronwyn and Arondir that I guess there was supposed to be a love connection. It's not that like, you can see little hints here and there, but it's not like there's no story right there to really get attached to them. After that whole scene, it cuts to Bronwyn and Arondir interacting at their home, which the dialogue sucks. I wasn't really, my eyes glazed over at that point. A cow came in with black milk, and you know, they were like, oh, well, let's go to the next town to see what's happening. When they travel about like a day's time away to the next town, by the time they reach the next town, it's already dark. And the town is literally in flames. And then it goes to a section where you have Elrond and Gil-galad talking. And I'm like, okay, you're not good enough to be a lord to be considered to go to this meeting, but at the same time you're having a wonderful friendly conversation, very chum with the High King himself, and he's there talking to you as if you have any type of decision making capabilities, and you're even there enough to be, you know, writing speeches for him, but at the same time not allowing you to be in lord meetings. Didn't make sense to me. And they make Gil-galad seem like an a-hole. Like, he seems very in denial, I should say. I mean, he's like, it's like they're having him insist that there is no evil. The world is still at peace. After they literally just came from the war with Morgoth, and obviously they knew about Sauron's existence, and then they're like, oh, there's no evidence that Sauron is actually defeated, so we're just gonna relax our guards. Assume that everything is all handy dandy in the world again, and not try to do anything to, you know, prevent something like the Waters of Beleriand happening again. But, you know, he's not a sensible king. Gil-galad also says to Elrond that they have this task that he wants him to complete with Celebrimbor then entering, and it kind of just implies that, I think it's like they were trying to set it up to show that maybe the rings were made with the High King's blessing. I don't know if that's what they were trying to go for. And then you have Galadriel standing on a boat going to Valinor. They're standing up in a line straight to Valinor, and before they enter, you know, the maids or the ladies, they take off their armor and they take away their swords, as if swords and armor are not allowed in Valinor. That just seems like nonsense to me. And then there's this heavenly scene where the gates opened, apparently, which it's like you are going into heaven type of situation, which honestly, I don't really mind that too much. That really didn't, it was just like a silly Clash of the Titans type of imagery to me. But I didn't really pay much attention to that. I was just like, why are they taking away their sword and their shield? Like, it's not like they didn't have weapons in Valinor or Aman. And as that was happening, you had the montage of the comet we saw in the teasers of the comet going across, you know, and Gilgalad. The scene that I found very silly was as that comet went across, there was a leaf that fell right beside Gilgalad, and out of all the fallen leaves that have already fallen to the ground beside Gilgalad, Gilgalad chose to look at that one leaf that fell, and he just simply flipped that over to see a disease on that leaf out of nowhere. And I'm there like, is this supposed to be a vision? How is it that all of a sudden he sees that leaf? There's like a ton of leaves already on the floor, so you know that leaves are constantly falling from that tree, right? He chooses to look at this one leaf and to pick up this one leaf, right? The tree is still fine. There's nothing wrong with the tree. There's no disease apparently on the tree, but there's a tree on this one leaf. Didn't make sense to me. And then it cuts to the stranger. They call him the stranger, like the guy that nobody should know, you know, in that crater surrounded by fire. I've seen a lot of people saying that it looked like the Eye of Sauron, so like a lot of people were saying, okay, this might be Sauron. Yeah, that's how it ended. That was my first impression for the first episode. Let me know what you guys thought. Did you guys watch it? If you watched it, what are your thoughts regarding that? What are the things that stuck out to you as like odd? These are just my first impressions, not necessarily a deep dive analysis of it. Overall, I felt that the first episode passed. I did not feel any connection to any of the characters. The characters that I was actually looking forward to seeing, I was very disappointed with their characters, their personalities, how they are described and how they present themselves. Very disappointed. Nothing really of significance really happened that I was like, oh wow, oh crap. Like, and I can't help but contrast it to when I watched the first episode of Game of Thrones, and I was watching it way before it got popular, where in the first episode I was like, oh crap, and I was already attached to characters in the first episode, and I knew nothing of the books. I was already attached to characters there. There was already a clear sense of what was going on. The epicness of stuff that happened, like you had an urgency to watch the second episode and the other episode that was coming on, right? Whereas the first episode of The Rings of Power was just very boring overall to me. I don't have anything else to say about that. It was very disjointed. The characters fell a little bit flat to me. The jokes fell a little bit flat to me. Some of the things that they were doing just didn't make sense. It was just I was left feeling very confused most of the time. So yeah, that's my impression of the first episode, guys. Let me know what you guys think. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the second one. But before we go though, I just want to remind you guys to subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell right beside the subscribe button to know when I'll release each video. I will be dropping them pretty soon. And follow me on all my social media platforms. I'm K Falcon everywhere. K Falcon on Facebook, K.Falcon on Instagram, and K_Falcon on Twitter. So follow me here, as well as everywhere else. Mucha later. Bye guys.